Okay, let's go to Billy here. He's got an Angels question. He says, whoa, Shohei Ohtani retire and Trout be traded? Thoughts?
Well, Ohtani's not going to retire. Ohtani might become a normal major league power hitting designated hitter. I don't know if he'll be able to pitch again, but we just have to wait and see whether he has brace surgery or full Tommy John surgery to see if he can come back on the mound. I think the bigger question is what does it say to his price tag? But if he's still a superstar hitting 46 to 50 home runs per year, he's probably going to get paid very well. The question is, where does he get paid? Trout's had a really good career as an individual, but a very frustrating career because of who this team is. What is it, 7 or 8 losing seasons in a row now that they're facing? And he's just really had bad luck. He just cannot stay on the field. He has missed. By the time we get to the end of the season, I think Trout has missed 300 games in maybe the last 4 years. Wow. And, this is a guy that, he breaks the hamate bone in his hand on a violent swing trying to hit a home run. The guy runs into a fence trying to make a catch and injures his back. Calf injury, run on the bases. I mean, guys break down. So he's had a really good career. He's an 11-time All-Star, but at the end of the day, he just can't stay on the field. And so you take all that and you add in the Rendon situation and all the injuries they've had with their pitching staffs and then the failed trades or the mistakes in free agency. Boy, it's a franchise that just cursed. I don't think they're going to trade Mike Trout. They've indicated they're going to try to keep Ohtani, so we'll see if that relationship continues. Phil
Nevin deserves better. He's a good coach. He's got his opportunity. But yeah, the Angels would be nuts to trade Trout. Especially since he's been injured, they would probably, other teams would try to get a discount on that. How old is Mike Trout?
32, maybe 34.
Okay, so he's kind of getting up there a little.
He's played a lot.
Yeah.
There's a wear and tear factor, I think, on him. Okay, next question.
Okay, from Emmanuel. He says, I'm glad Reggie Bush is suing the NCAA. USC made an example of while many SEC schools were given a slap on the wrist.
Well, some of the SEC schools have been nailed. Tennessee just got nailed. Now, they didn't ban them from a bowl game, but they took so many scholarships and recruiting visits away. Josh Heupel is not going to have an ability to win any games at Tennessee. So that's a pretty significant discipline they just handed out to UT. The sanctions have been really hard to show any fairness because they've been all over the place. You look at mistakes and you look at trouble and you look at Ohio State and illegal benefits that led to Jim Tressel getting fired as head coach. And then you look at what they did to USC and you look at obviously what was done in the past. The Southwest Conference was dirty as you can believe. Mm-hmm. SMU, Eric Dickerson, Craig, all those guys.
Craig James, right?
Craig James. So the consistency in the NCAA has really been an issue. But at the end of the day, the fact that Reggie Bush refused to cooperate with the NCAA investigation, to me, that's a huge credibility thing that's wrapped on him. And the fact that his family, they didn't deny it. Guys got convicted because of what they did. So it's pretty hard for me to buy that he didn't get any benefits out of this. His family got all the benefits.
That's indirectly him.
Yeah, that's a stretch. But NCAA is a real mess right now, and they've got to clean this thing up. And I don't know where all this thing is going. I'm not convinced that Bush has legs to stand on with the way he's directing this lawsuit.
Well, imagine just for a minute that he won the lawsuit and he had his money back, his reputation restored. Well, then you could go back in time and start overturning a lot of things, like the Michigan basketball program would get their banners back for their championships, UNLV basketball. I mean, we could go down the list.
We'll see if this ever gets to court, and we'll see if there's a dollar value attached to what Reggie Bush and Ben Crump are trying to do. We go on. Next question.
We go on. Okay, here's an Aztec question from John Hopkins. He says, just want to express my admiration for Steven Strasburg, who will announce his retirement on September 9th. Helix, San Diego State, Washington, World Series MVP. He gave me a lot to cheer for.
He gave Washington everything he could humanly give, and then his body kept breaking down on him. He's a self-made guy. Those of us have been out here a long time in San Diego saw him grow up, coming from the East County as just an big old farm kid who was out of condition. And then he learned to be a pitcher. And then Gwynn taught him how to be a professional. And then he went to Washington. And Mike Rizzo, I think historically, is one of the more underrated general managers who built the Washington Nationals into a team that won the World Series. And now they've gone through some really bad times where ownership is about to sell the franchise, and he had to cut payroll and move people and all that. But yet you look at the box scores and you look at what they have at AAA, they got like 11 really good young kids. A whole pile of them came from the players in the Juan Soto trade.
Yeah.
Rizzo's done a good job. I think Rizzo's a good baseball man, but I guess all franchises go through those cycles. But hey, Strasburg, a hell of a career. It's too bad it was kind of cut short.
Yeah.
I would have loved to seen him get the chance to maybe push this thing to 200 career wins, which to me is almost a Hall of Fame type stature accomplishment.
Yeah, he's definitely on the cusp of a Hall of Fame or just really good. But just what a sensation he was at San Diego State. And we started hearing the stories about him. It was like he was this legendary mythical figure that they found, kind of like, remember the Sports Illustrated article about Sid Finch?
Yeah.
You know, you could throw 140 miles an hour and all this
Kid
other
from Australia.
Yeah. So, but he was the real deal. And Aztec fans were very proud of him. But yeah, a tough way to go out.
Real tough. On we go. A couple more questions here from the fans before we go to social media.
Manny has something to say. He says, if Cal does go to the ACC, would the UC Board of Regents try to prevent the deal? What about if they only go for football and basketball? Who do the other sports play against?
Well, none of the Stanford Cal stuff makes any sense to me at all. And yet, what I dug up was the fact that ESPN went back to the ACC with their TV contract and said, if you expand and go to 18, which is what they're now talking about, they're talking about Cal, Stanford, and SMU. You'd take in the Bay Area, you'd take in the Texas TV market. If you do that, we'll give you $72 million addition to the terms of the contract that goes till 2036. What they've evidently got Cal and Stanford to kind of agree to is they take a minimum pay TV deal for the first 5 years. SMU would take no money, which is weird to me, but they take no TV revenue for 5 years. Then they would get bumped up to be on an even pay scale. If that were to happen, it'd be about, I was told, $55 million left in the ESPN bonus package that they would give the ACC. ACC would then flip that and give it bonus money on top of the TV revenue, bonus money to any school that went to the college playoffs, bonus money if you won the championship. In essence, they would give bonus money to Florida State, Clemson, Miami as a way to keep them in the conference and make them stop looking across the street. Makes no sense to me to have Cal and Stanford be in the ACC on the other side of the country. Makes no sense. What kind of rivalry? You excited about a rivalry? You playing Wake Forest?
Yeah.
It's absurd to me. And then what do you do with all your Olympic sports, et cetera? Byproduct of this, if this happens, and I'll tell you what, by the time we do our Monday bonus podcast, this might happen, that those three would go to the ACC. That leaves Oregon State, Washington State by themselves.
The PAC-2.
The PAC-2. But I'll tell you what, if they could emotionally make the commitment to drop down to the Mountain West, and maybe that would then lead to a new TV contract the Mountain West has. But if the Mountain West, which has got pretty good football programs, adds the Beavers and adds the Cougars, that's a pretty good football conference.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is, I think you'd still be a group of five. I don't think you'd be a Power Five just because you added Oregon State, Washington State. But those people in Corvallis and Pullman, this has been so cruel to them, what's happened to this conference. And I mean, I blame the Pac-10 presidents. They have blood on their hands on this terrible, and now there's no conference at all. It might be down to Pac-2 by Monday. It might be good for the Mountain West to add the Beavers and the Cougars to San Diego State and Boise and Fresno. That'd be kind of a neat football conference, but boy, what an emotional setback that would be to be a Beaver, to be a Cougar, and now drop down to play in the Mountain West.
Yeah, that's a step down. But, look at so many things going on in college sports. It's insane. So, these programs, they're trying to figure out what to do. I think about BYU when they went independent but they had all their non-football sports in the West Coast Conference. Yeah. And, you know, something like that could work. But yeah, the whole thing is just a big cluster, you know, when it comes to how they're doing it. It's like the TV executives are running these conferences. The conferences have kind of given up, you know, in their own integrity on this.
And then what we talked about last week, what Trev Alberts in Nebraska said, these guys are going to regret this, because these networks are going to wake up one morning and say, why the hell are we paying $50 million TV money to Northwestern to finish last, or to Maryland, or to Rutgers?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. And then the jumping off point was Conference of Champions, Champions League. Take the top 2 or 3 schools from each of the big boys, and they go into a conference by themselves. It's very complicated. I get a headache trying to think about it, but we'll see where this ACC expansion goes, which then impacts what's left in the PAC2. The PAC2 joins the Mountain West. We'll have more topics on the table to talk about. Okay, John, move on.
Here's another final social media or live stream comment. Shout out, Saw, from Hamul to Hamaka. We're all watching.
You know, it's interesting. A reporter called me to do an interview with me this week for the, quote, Coastal News, which is a weekly paper over Del Mar, Solana Beach, Cardiff by the Sea, Encinitas. It's got a lot of subscribers. And I thought he was calling to make light of the fact the Aztecs play my Ohio Bobcats. We wound up talking about the history of sports talk radio. So if you're really interested, just go to their website. I think it's coastalnews.com, and see the article that Jay Paris wrote about what we're doing now on our podcast, what we're doing on social media, what we're doing with my website. So it was a very complimentary column.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. What was that line you had about the Raider fans?
Oh, Raider Nation out of jail on bail. Call now.
Good stuff. We all remember those days in 690. Let's get some social media comments in here. And here's like the good one here about the Dodgers, because there's been so much smack talking on our Instagram on the Dodgers.
Why the hate?
Oh, just so much. Yeah. And this is from Gerardo, and he says, I don't hate the team, but I hate what surrounds them. Most of the fans are trash. Their columnists, their sports announcers are so full of bleep. Obviously, the team is top 3 in the league, and for the strut it has with 1 World Series ring in the last 34 years, it's a trash supporter team. The Giants have 3 rings these past 12 years, and I don't see them acting like cocky like the Smurfs do.
Guys from San Francisco here, friend of yours? Or?
I don't know, man, but it's coming down hard.
Now, I can't agree with everything you say that the Dodgers announcers are bleep. I'm sorry, Vin Scully was not that.
Oh, yeah.
End of the day, the Dodgers are a really good organization. And yes, they've only won 1 World Series in 3 decades, but winning a World Series is really hard. The Giants were the uniqueness. Atlanta's had a great franchise for all those decades, a chunk of them with Bobby Cox, and they did it one time. So, you know, I don't know whether it's the LA, San Diego emotion, the relationship, big team, little brother down the freeway. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers are in first place, and the Dodgers are probably going to wind up play the Braves sometime in the National League playoffs, and the Padres don't get it done again. So this conversation, I'm sure, will go on and on and on. But I think you do have to respect the history of Dodger baseball. And I mean, they have been front runners and groundbreakers in terms of a lot of things about the business of baseball and the personnel of baseball and where they go get all the players of baseball. I think we view the Dodger leadership differently than we view the Yankee leadership when it was owned by Steinbrenner. And then we view the Dodgers differently than Ted Turner in Atlanta, or the people up in the New England nation, the Red Sox fans. So I think it's been a great organization. Padres are a great organization at this point in time, but they haven't gotten the job done.
Well, I think, as far as our organization, Jackie Robinson, Fernando Valenzuela,
everybody from the Pacific Rim,
Hideo Nomo. I mean, just so many great signings. And, again, I grew up a Giants fan. I'm a Padre fan now, and it pains me to say it, but they're a good organization. But the smack talking in the Instagram is insane. And it's basically fans hating on fans, not too much hating on the team.
On we go. We got a couple more social media here.
Okay, let's go here to again, talking about conference realignment. Here's one. This is from Adam, and he says, anyone reporting Miami to the SEC isn't doing their homework. Multiple sources have reported the SEC is not interested in adding Miami. This is why Florida State is working with Clemson, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia. They would all block Miami.
Well, I think Florida State and Miami are kind of emotionally joined, but I don't know at this point that there's going to be a divorce, because I think also there's a chunk of people that say, well, you're thinking about Florida State's greatness during the Bobby Bowden era. They haven't been great for a while. So Florida State's not what Florida State is. Neither are the Hurricanes. And if this is all about money, and if the ACC does this weird deal with Stanford and Cal and generates more money in their own bank account for all these teams, then I think the ACC probably stays in place. But there is disparity. I mean, Clemson is at a different level than Virginia and everybody else in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And Florida State used to be at a certain level, and the Hurricanes used to be at a certain level, but have not been for a while.
Trev Alberts might turn out to be the
smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, the forecaster of this whole thing. Again, just getting those elite teams together. But that would just kill the rest of the sport.
We move on.
Here's another Dodger comment. And he says, it's not Tommy Lasorda's mouth. It's your mouth. What's wrong with you with disrespecting Tommy?
Tommy was great. Tommy was a great motivator. They gave him great players, and he pushed enough buttons, but his mouth did wear you out from the outside looking in. It just on and on and on and on. But that's not to take away from all the wins. But he had 1,400 wins in his career. Phenomenal guy, self-made guy, and he was a personality unto himself. But I think I spin back, because the reason Bistrada has said this is it comes as an offshoot of why the hate towards Dodgers. Well, there's a lot of people outside the circle just tired of Tommy Lasorda's mouth and his act. Now, I'm sure there's a few select people tired of my mouth. That's okay. That comes with the territory. But Lasorda did a hell of a job. And Dave Roberts has done an amazing job in a very, very different era of Major League Baseball. And those guys are superseded by Walter Alston, whose numbers were just staggering, I think, over a 24-year run as a manager with the old Brooklyn Dodgers. So Lasorda's persona probably kind of is always out front, and I think that's what may have turned Giant fan here off a little bit.
Yeah, when I think of Lasorda, not only do I think of him as a good manager, but I think of him and Oral Hershiser in 1988, when they had that magical run, and they had a different relationship. They were very close. I think about the Bavacqua verbal war with all the F-bombs. I think about him getting into a fight with the Philly Fanatic, on the field. I think about him when it was an all-star game.
Got hit by line drive and fell over.
Yes, exactly. He fell over like a weeble. The weebles fall, but they don't fall down, or whatever, how that goes. But it was like they put him out at third base in an honorary situation. And then he ended up having to dodge a bullet. So a character, but definitely a huge part of Dodger history.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
We move on. A couple more here.
Okay, let's go here to let's see a little NBA comments here. This is from Joey talking about James Harden. He says Harden is cooked. He had his chances to win a ring. Where he goes next doesn't matter much.
I'll tell you what, his baggage precedes him in the front door, because this stunt, forcing his way out of Philly, is like he forced his way out of Houston, like he forced his way out of Oklahoma City, like he forced his way out of Brooklyn. I mean, this kind of action, I think, has payback down road. So you got all this unhappiness and his age, and you're going to give him a 5-year max contract for $250? I don't think so at his age with his baggage. Can he still play? Yeah, he's got to have the ball in his hand all the time. I think he's running out of places to go play. And for him to handle his business the way he did in Philadelphia it's sheer stupidity. If he wants to go to Golden State, wants to go to the LA Clippers, work out the deal behind the curtain instead of spouting off, this guy's a liar, he promised. There's no way to solve that once it's out there in the world.
Yeah, if you're a GM of a NBA team and you're trying to build a championship team, James Harden isn't one of the first names you think of. Even if you just want to, kind of get a little pizzazz, get more people into the arena to watch the game, is James Harden the guy that's going to, sell out the season tickets for the team? I don't think so. So he just seems definitely at the end of the line.
You look at the guys who have forced their way off teams recently. You start with Westbrook, Harden, Kyrie, Kevin Durant. That's just 4. There's probably a ton more who have created this mess and got traded and left behind the wreckage of a franchise because it didn't work out and they got out alive. I just think that's bad. That's a bad way to do business. I think it's bad for the game of the NBA. And unfortunately, Adam Silver has not been able to reel these characters back in and say, you're not going to do this. Everybody wants their max contract. Everybody's going to say what's coming out of their mouth or whatever shows up on social media on their account. I just think it's detrimental to the league.
Well, didn't this all kind of start when LeBron took his talents to South Beach? Because that's when the team started getting their buddies together and going in as a group, and the players started really calling the shots on trades.
Yeah, but LeBron didn't do anything. He was wrong. He was a free agent.
Right.
He had a right. And I mean, I saw that press conference. I said, oh, that is interesting. I'm taking my talents to Miami. But he was a free agent. He didn't have years left on his contract in which he'd stand up and say, I don't like what you're doing with the franchise. You failed me. I want out. By the way, I'm owed this amount of money. And LeBron didn't do it that way. And I think everybody resented, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. I think that was the wrong phraseology to use. But yeah, it's odd. He did go back to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And he was welcomed with open arms, and they did have success in the second run with LeBron James. Hey, listen, we hope you've enjoyed what we brought your way on Thursday.